Hello everyone and welcome to Franchise Focus. I'm your host Lisa Lankowski. I am the owner of Milestone Franchising and I am a certified franchise consultant representing hundreds of concepts, and I work with candidates every day on looking at business ownership. And Franchise Focus is all about experts in the franchise industry and business owners, real business owners that own franchises. And today in studio I have Rich Bernstein, who is the owner of Huntington Learning Center here in Cherry Hill. Welcome, Rich.
Welcome. Thank you, Lisa. Thanks for the intro.
Of course. Well, thank you so much for coming in. It is always great to listen and to talk to people that own franchise businesses, and yours is a very different one in the fact that it is all about education. And you've got a great story. So tell us about who you are and how did you come into the franchise world?
So I was in a completely different world. I was in the wholesale life insurance business before, and series of management changes, things caused me to want to get out on my own. Had come from an entrepreneurial family, so always wanted to have my own business, but did not want to start out on my own. I looked at other business concepts, one of which was a tutoring company, and said, oh, it's all set for franchising. But I didn't know anything about education. So the Huntington opportunity presented itself through that old-fashioned source, the business opportunities section of the Philadelphia Inquirer. No one uses those anymore. And I looked at it on and off periodically for a few months. And then finally, there were some opportunities for some existing centers at the time available in the Philadelphia market, and the rest is somewhat history. That was 26 years ago.
Right, I was going to say, how long ago was this? This is 26 years ago.
Probably 27 when we started the process, yeah.
So you weren't interested in tutoring, but you ended up in education anyway. So why were you drawn to that?
Well, what was required in the business, not to be an educator necessarily. In fact, we don't require our owners or our center directors to be educators, but it had similar characteristics needed to run a successful business as I was using in my prior career. So things like networking, things like interpersonal skills, things like being good on the telephone. Most of my prior job was done over the telephone. Those types of things were what were required. Selling an intangible, so to speak. We're in the life insurance business. We're in the education business. In fact, when I first went to training, there was a great guy who was a trainer at the time in the company, and he said to me, what'd you do before this? I said, I was in life insurance. He scratched his chin a minute and said, wow, life insurance, that's what we do too.
That's a good one.
Kind of an interesting thought process.
Okay, absolutely. So 26 years, you've seen a whole lot happen in the franchise industry within your own franchise, and you've also owned multiple locations. So how long did it take for you to ramp up and look at getting your second location? Did you decide that from the beginning to do that? Like, how did that whole process work?
We'd actually thought about opening a second from day one, had an option on a second, which we declined. Just wasn't prepared because things were growing actually really rapidly, and we weren't prepared for it. The second one came about as a happenstance. Someone was selling nearby, kind of an adjoining location, and there were two young people who tried to buy it on their own and couldn't qualify, didn't have the money, didn't have the experience. So they came to me and said, do you want to partner with us? So that's what we did. That didn't go very well, to be honest. Lasted a couple of years, but it got us into having a second center. Worked out beautifully. When things didn't work out with them, it was about 2 years in, right about the time my wife was getting laid off from her job. Perfect opportunity for her to come in business with us.
Okay, excellent. And now, did you just stay at the two?
We stayed at two. We they're both in Pennsylvania and Delaware originally, and we actually sold both of those and moved back because we lived in South Jersey all the time, and bought the one in Cherry Hill and Turnersville later.
Okay.
So never had more than two at a time.
All right, so you were in PA and Delaware, then sold those, and then moved on over, and now you have them in New Jersey.
Absolutely.
And that's fantastic, really good. So clearly, you've been with the system for a long time. You believe in it. You're all in with it. This is it. Then March 2020 hits. And the world shuts down. education goes virtual. You had to go virtual, I'm guessing,
Yes,
as well.
absolutely.
How did that work? How was the system? How did they respond to everything? How did the owners respond?
So the system responded quite well. The franchisor quickly got us availability of being online. Some things they knew were happening and started putting some of our curriculum online, buying rights to some curricula we did not have. And inside of, I would say, a month after we were shut down here in New Jersey, we were able to be back online tutoring virtually. It was an adjustment, big adjustment. People who were used to face-to-face, when I say people, meaning our tutors, had to work online. Some weren't comfortable with technology, so we had to do some training virtually with all of that. Some didn't have adequate computer equipment. We had to meet with them and drop off computers to them. I mean, it was materials that we often use for our SAT and ACT prep. We're delivering things in parents' mailboxes, delivering books to parents. It changed things very dramatically. We were able to get back online pretty quickly. It still wasn't the same for a good long time. I would tell you that for most of it's not quite back to normal, but getting very, very, very close.
Sure, but I've said it a million times that had all of this happened 5 years ago, it would have been excruciatingly difficult because
Absolutely.
we didn't have the bandwidth for Wi-Fi and we didn't have the equipment and we didn't have so many of the things that did help us to be able to move into this whole virtual space.
Absolutely.
So how much of your business, how many of your clients today are in person versus virtual, would you say?
The vast majority are in person for us. Okay. That said, the availability of online or virtual is great because we're able to supplement with lots of things. For example, I have one student who spends time here locally with his mom, but then spends some weekends with his dad in Reading, Pennsylvania. Well, we don't have to interrupt his instruction. We can still meet with him on Saturdays when he's out there. We have students who once in a while, unfortunately, still getting quarantined because they've had an exposure. We can continue to instruct them. We have students who spend the summer at the shore or at a grandparent's house or another parent's house. We're able to continue our instruction with them. So it does give us a lot of flexibility. Having two centers, it gives us some flexibility too, where I can share staff. If we need to have somebody who works down in the Turnersville area work with one of our kids up here, we can do that.
Right.
Just gives a lot more flexibility.
So all
than we
it
had in the
did was
past.
just now add another layer to your business and make things a little bit more flexible as they need to be. So that's actually a good thing, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
No
So
question about that.
that's a good thing. Do you know offhand how many units there are for Huntington
There's
location?
about 300, give or take.
300.
Real close to 300, yes.
Okay, and so talk about, we've used the word education, we've used the word tutoring. Explain what Huntington is.
Okay. What Huntington is we have a mission statement. Very simple, easiest mission statement known to man. It's called to give every student the best education possible. And that's how we operate. Our job is to make sure every student gets the best education possible. For most kids, that's a remedial situation. For most of our students, that's remedial. There are kids who are behind in their reading, their writing, their study skills, their math, for the most part. So we call those learning center kids we need to catch up. There's also some who are enrichment. I met with a family yesterday who they go to a regional school district. Their school is the least competitive of the districts sending to the high school district. So they want their student to be at the top of his class so when he gets into a more competitive high school, he's prepared for it. So we do enrichment as well for some students who want to gain the educational edge, we used to call it. We also do a lot of SAT, ACT prep. Despite all the press surrounding it that tests aren't, quote, are no
Optional.
longer, well, they're optional. We don't see it that way.
Right.
The statistics tell us that about 2/3 of kids are still submitting scores, and what we're finding is because so many students who are not submitting scores are sending their applications to more competitive schools, the acceptance rates are going down. So we don't see it as being optional necessarily. We think that's going to come back around as well. More and more schools will go back to asking for them again. And in fact, students have to do a certain level of SAT, ACT, or some other standardized test to be able to graduate high school going forward in the state of New Jersey. So there's a need for these things no matter what.
Right. And, to go along with the fact that the pandemic has affected education so dramatically, and it created a lag for a lot of learners throughout this whole time period.
Absolutely.
So you are so much more in need than you ever were, is my guess, for that very reason, right?
Absolutely, particularly at the youngest student. Well, there's a couple different groups, but right now we're seeing a tremendous amount of younger students.
So you'll work with elementary all the way up to high school.
Yeah, and some of those really young, I mean, you think about a third grader who this year's in third grade, hasn't had a full year of school, in school building since kindergarten.
Right.
So those very formative years when they're learning to read are taken away from them. Second grader has never been full-time in a school, for a full school year yet. So we're seeing a lot of needs there. Unfortunately, for them, school has not changed. A third grader still needs to be able to do third grade work.
Right.
Because we can't hold the whole system back.
Right, and so now parents or guardians can reach out, and they've got this resource, which is incredible, and so needed, especially now more than ever. And you could never have imagined that something like this would happen.
Never in a million years.
Ever, right?
No.
So, but it's good because you have this resource available to families, and so how do you have a relationship with the local schools in the area?
Yeah, we do, and it's different than it used to be because now we meet on Zoom. We don't go into the school building the way we used to.
Right.
So the relationships have changed a little bit, but still we have relationships with the local schools. As part of our services, we reach out to the students, teachers, guidance counselors, whatever the case may be, on behalf of the family to make a connection, to make sure that what they're seeing in school is comparable to what we're seeing, to make sure that we're all pulling in the same direction, making sure the students get success.
Sure. And is there any economic resources provided in any way for those that can't afford something like a Huntington Learning Center?
We do not provide scholarships or anything of financial aid necessarily, but there's all kinds of financing mechanisms that are available. These days we see more and more grandparents participating and helping, other family members helping, but there are financial options that are available that make it affordable. We can bring students in for a couple $100s a month or less in terms of a financing type package. There are some opportunities for school districts to provide services through us as well, particularly now because a lot of them have gotten CARES money to help bring their kids up. So we are now working with superintendents, principals, directors of special ed, whoever's in charge in a given district to bring the resources to the students, whether it's in their building, our building, wherever that might take place, community centers, wherever we can do it.
Okay, terrific. Well, we're going to take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsors, and then we'll be back on the other side.
My gifts are from The RealReal because I always feel very confident in what I get. I know it's been authenticated. The thrill of the hunt, they have things I never thought I'd see again.
Gonna relish the gifts and the smiles.
Top designers, up to 90% off retail. All I want for Christmas is Gucci, Louis Vuitton, Hermes, Prada, Rolex, Cartier.
Real stuff at a really good price.
Unwrap the unexpected with The RealReal.
Shop over 10,000 new arrivals daily. Get 20% off at The RealReal. Terms apply.
Are you part of the Great Resignation? Are you a business owner that would like to diversify your business holdings? Have you always had an entrepreneurial itch but did not have a concept to get you started? Milestone Franchising represents over 500 franchise concepts across 30 industries. Concepts range from $20,000 to $6 million, and they can be home-based, office-based, mobile, or brick and mortar. We guide you through the process to select which concept is best for you based upon your core competencies, your interests, and your financials. Milestone Franchising is part of the International Franchise Professionals Group, IFPG, and will bring a host of resources to assist you in your quest for business ownership. When you work with a certified franchise consultant, you gain access to a professional process that helps you succeed in your search for the right placement. Finding the best placement for you within the franchising world of 4,000 concepts is the objective. Matching your skills and goals with a culture that fits you best is the priority. For a free consultation, visit our website at milestonefranchising.com. Milestone Franchising is here to lead you in a new direction. And welcome back to Franchise Focus. I'm your host, Lisa Lankowski, and I'm sitting here in studio today with Rich Bernstein, who is the owner of 2 Huntington Learning Center locations in South Jersey. And Rich, for the 26 years that you've been involved in this franchise, 10 of those were spent being the president of your co-op. And that's cooperative advertising, where you put yourself in with other franchise owners and you all pool your money together for helping to buy media. Talk about that and what that experience has been like.
It's been very good, but also very frustrating, no question about that. Working with up to 20 other people and everybody getting their own way can be a little challenging. Sure. However, that said, it's also a great benefit, and frankly, it's one of the benefits of being part of a franchise network. We're able to, via a cooperative advertising group, we're able to buy advertising we couldn't possibly buy on our own. Back in the day, it started with doing the Philadelphia Inquirer, for example. That was done cooperatively. Today, not so much there, but for us, television. We're able to afford television. And if you can imagine, on a broadcast basis, I can't possibly buy from South Jersey. If I wanted to buy on the network TV stations, I'd be paying for all of the Delaware Valley, where I don't have centers. But because we have centers all over the Delaware Valley, we can contribute our dollars and buy television advertising together. It also allows us to do some smaller things where we'll do cable or today they call it over the top, other types of YouTube advertising, YouTube or Hulu and that type of thing too. Very local, that we can buy localized, so we can get viewers from all types, but we can do it in a way that's much cheaper than we could ever possibly do these things on our own. See more eyeballs for lower dollars.
Right.
What it also does, because we're all part of the same franchise, we all do the same job in different locations, we can commiserate. We can share with each other. We can learn from successes, we can learn from each other's failures. And to me, that's one of the beauties of being part of a franchise, is you're not out there in business by yourself. You're in business for yourself, but not by yourself.
Absolutely. I couldn't say it any better, and it's a message that I try to bring to this audience on a regular basis and to my candidates, that you're sitting there having this other breadth of wonderful expertise around you. And yes, some people can be a little bit, you've got personalities in there, but you get to hear and if you really, really sit back, you will learn from everyone that's around you. And because everyone's encountering different situations and different scenarios, and you get to hear and learn and absorb and then take that and apply it to your everyday. So you get the benefit of having this co-op, which a lot of franchises I don't think are as good with this as you have been, and it's really a testament to you guys that you've been able to do something like that, and it's something that more should be doing. 100%, so many benefits. Right? So many benefits.
Absolutely. Many, many, many opportunities, even today when there's not big local newspapers that we typically advertise in. There's plenty of other avenues where we can jointly use our resources at a much more cost-effective way than doing it on our own.
Right, and you get to have a breadth that's so much further and expands so much greater because of it. Because like you said, all of your franchises that all border to your area, it gets to cover everything. And then you get to actually negotiate. Absolutely. And if you try to sit there and knock on the door by yourself, they're gonna, it's going to be extremely expensive and out of your price range, and but now you get this opportunity to work together. So that is one of the wonderful things about having this franchise system in place. So here's another question for you. So you're a business owner, and a franchise gives you all of the system in place for how to run the business. They do, yes. But you have to run it. At
Absolutely.
The end of it. You
Yes.
have to run it. So it's not as easy as, 1, 2, 3.
Right.
So over this, very, very wide, span of time, What are some messages that you can give to business owners out there that want to become business owners about some mistakes that you've made?
Okay. I'd say, well, one of the biggest mistakes I made was I mentioned that we'd bought businesses with partners. It ended up being a good opportunity, but it also ended up being one of our biggest mistakes. These are people who are not prepared to be business owners. Wanted a 9-to-5 lifestyle, wanted, I want to be able to be off when I want to be off, and when do I start getting raises? Well, business isn't making money yet. You don't get a raise. And we were the majority partner, so we did not get raises. So that's a mistake we made. The biggest mistake I see people making in, not just in our system, but other franchise systems, is not following the system.
Right.
You buy a franchise and yes, you want your entrepreneurial spirit and you want your hard work and your expertise from whatever field you came from, but these systems are built because they're successful, and you're paying for that. Use it. In addition, not using the trainings that are provided. Most franchisors provide a wealth of training. A lot of people do not take advantage of it. So they're kind of mistakes that people make. Don't expand too quickly. That's a mistake a lot of people make. Don't buy more real estate. When I say buy or lease more real estate than you need, that's a mistake I've done at times over the years, because that's that fixed cost that you can't change once things get bad, and they do get bad at times, because there are economic changes and
There's
pandemics
ups
and
recessions,
all kinds of things. So you're still locked into that lease. You want to make sure you don't take more real estate than you really need.
Excellent. All great points, and thank you for sharing them, because, we can talk about the successes all day long, but talking about those pain points and those things that, are stumbling blocks for many owners for getting out there. When you talked about the partners, that's what I say to my candidates all the time. I go, this is it. You're it. There's no one else. You don't have all the layers that you might have had in your executive world to run and do all the things that need to be done. You're it.
Right.
So you've got to make it happen, and it's going to be long, and it's going to be grueling, and it's going to be terrifying at times, but then it settles.
Absolutely.
It settled. It
Yeah.
settled for you,
Yeah.
and you got to breathe and, not clench all moments long.
Yeah.
Do you remember how far into your business ownership that happened?
I wouldn't say I've ever still sleep well at night, but there's always some worry or another. But
Sure.
Probably 2 to 3 years.
Yeah,
Real comfort level somewhere around there.
Yeah, that 2 to 3 years. Now, how many employees do you currently have at this time?
So we have 4 full-time and 45, 50-ish part-time, somewhere in that neighborhood.
And who do you rely on for the 45, 50? Are there a lot of teachers that are there with you?
Yeah, mostly teachers, broad cross-section of people for us. Right now, we happen to be very fortunate. We found a lot of people who retired from teaching relatively early, so they're on the younger side of that, but still want to be active and still want to teach and still vibrant, things like that. We have a lot of young people who have not found their first teaching job. We have some graduate students, some stay-at-home moms who still want to keep their foot in the door of teaching, but don't want to commit to a full-time schedule at this point. So broad cross-section.
So you're not seeing the issue with getting your staffing?
I didn't say that. The supply is not what it used to be.
Right.
There's no question about
Okay.
that. Are we able to service all of our customers? Yes. Do we have a lot of excess capacity like we've had at other times? No. The number of candidates coming through the doors is not the same as it used to be.
Right.
Definitely seeing it, but we get to be a little more flexible, change our hours a little bit. Maybe work with some candidates who might not be 100% ideal, but work with them become ideal candidates. So we've been able to make it work, and we'll continue to make it work. But we're not shutting down hours because we don't have enough people or anything like that.
Right, and you're doing exactly what a business owner needs to do, which a franchise has no control over something like this,
Right.
which is figure it out.
Yeah.
Figure it out and make it happen so that you can still service your clients, which is the most important piece of this,
Yes.
and make sure that they're getting taken care of, but at all means, and whatever that means, you're making sure that that's happening.
Absolutely, no question about that.
Wonderful. So you've got this whole you're sitting here with this business. Do you have family is your wife now still helping you
Yep,
at this point?
She's been with me full-time, I think 19 years, something like that. So a long time, yeah.
Wow. And do you have other family that's also
Not
taken an
currently.
interest?
No, not currently.
Not currently.
No.
And I often talk about exit strategy on this show, on this program, because it is such an important piece. Do you have your exit strategy already starting to think about it?
We have ideas, obviously, but the pandemic put a crimp in some of those things because that put us probably a couple of years behind schedule.
Right.
But the beauty of a business like ours is it's very saleable. There's plenty of people want to be in this business, so there are opportunities there. There are people who might, no one I would name, but thinking about people who might want to be part of the business longer term. So there's a lot of different ways to do it. There's ways to ease out in this business where, we could be part-time and still keep a hand in the business as well. So not a full-blown strategy yet. Like I said, had the pandemic not happened, probably would have had a much more full-blown strategy in place today.
Understood. Well, thank you so much, Rich, for coming in. For those that want to reach out to Rich for his services in tutoring and learn more about Huntington Learning Center, we're going to put Rich's contact information up here on the screen for you. And we thank you, Rich, for coming in. And we thank you for tuning in to Franchise Focus. It does air every Friday at 1 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And to learn more about me, you can visit my website at milestonefranchising.com. And thank you so much, and we look forward to the next time.